Hey guys, back with another video, another impressions video. So a game that I haven't finished and that I'm not crazy about. And I played this game before Trails in the Sky second chapter. Actually, I played this game a little while ago, and I kind of dropped it. And we'll get into that. And this is an indie game on PC. I'm pretty sure you can only get it on PC. And it's called Lisa the Painful. And there's also like an expansion called Lisa the Joyful, which I haven't played. I've only played the Painful, which came out in 2014, I think, at the very end of 2014. And it's one of those games that Earthbound is like the big inspiration for this game, and I've heard this game get a lot of praise, and it always looked really interesting to me from like the screenshots and gameplay clips that I've seen of it. It looked like a game that would be up my alley, and for the most part, it is. But there's a lot of gameplay aspects to it that really drove me up the wall, and it's what made me drop the game. Even though I think there's a lot about this game that I really do admire, I just wish it was a more playable experience that was actually more fun to play. We'll get into that, but it's definitely an interesting game. There's nothing quite like it. Even it's obviously inspired by Earthbound, but it's very different in a few different ways. But basically, you play this character named Brad, I think his name is, and he's got kind of a drug addiction. You're in like a post-apocalyptic wasteland, basically. I forget the name of the world here, but in the beginning of the game, you get to see like your past and your character has an abusive father, and right from the get-go, this game's subject matter is very disturbing and kind of raw. Like this game just has like a raw emotion to it that's surprising and not something you see in games too often. So the game takes place like years later, where basically there's no females in this entire world. They've all died off or something, and Brad finds this baby, a female baby, and he kind of raises the baby as his own, and names her Buddy, I think. And she grows up with him, and I think a few years after that, she gets kidnapped, basically, and you have to kind of rescue her, and that's kind of the plot. And you get some backstory with the main character as you kind of progress through the game, but it kind of reminds me of Children of Men a bit, actually, which it's not totally like that, but it reminded me of that a little. And it's something you don't see too often. It's in games. Like you see a lot of post-apocalyptic games, but nothing with this kind of like emotional pull to it. And it's a good plot device, I think, trying to find your daughter that you've raised, and it's a kind of flawed main character, which I thought it was pretty interesting. So the story is actually probably the best thing about the game. It can be funny. Some of the characters you'll meet throughout the game are very violent, and like all the different kind of situations you'll encounter in this game are really crazy and out there. And the game's sense of humor is very... Man, it's hard to describe, because it's like there's a lot of fucked up shit in this game, but at the same time it can be funny, but and it's also sad at times as well, and depressing. It's weird. I can't really describe to you like the humor. You'll have to. I'll put some gameplay footage up, but to give you a kind of an idea of what the game's like in terms of its like style. But it's different, and I really dug it. So that's one of the main differences with this and Earthbound. Earthbound, for the most part, is a pretty colorful, vibrant, happy game. This, not so much. It definitely has its moments of humor, but it's pretty dark and disturbing at times. So we'll move on to the gameplay, and this is where the game just didn't really connect with me, and what made me put the game down. It basically is a side-scrolling RPG of sorts, where there'll be random battles, but you don't actually find them. When you're exploring these environments, they'll be like you'll run into like a character that's gonna just like come right in front of you, and it's gonna be like a boss character, and you'll fight a battle there. There are some areas where you'll find random encounters, but for most of the game there aren't actually any random encounters like in a lot of old RPGs. But it's kind of a side scroller. You get like a small little jump ability where you can kind of climb up platforms. And you get some more abilities, like movement-based abilities, later in the game, from what I've seen. And you're basically talking to characters, doing some very light puzzle solving, and exploring this like wasteland, this really massive wasteland environment. There's sort of like a hub area in the first part of the game, that you kind of go, you kind of keep backtracking to and from, and that leads into some of my annoyances with this game. But first we'll talk about the battle system. The battle system is in first person, like with the old school Dragon Quest games and Earthbound. And it's basically, the combat is not the most complex combat out there. You've got like button inputs you can do, so you have different like kind of combos, and unfortunately this game doesn't have like full controller support. You really got to play with a keyboard because it shows like the W, A, S, and D keys for your moves. So like one combo will be like a burning flame attack, and you have to press like W, S, S, D, and you'll pull that off. And you can input up to 5 commands at once, and then you'll do your attack. You can have up to 4 party members in battle, and they each have their different abilities, and you kind of get different skills as you level up. And later in the game, there's some interesting choices you'll have to make that kind of affects gameplay in a way. I don't really want to spoil some of that stuff, because that's some of the more unique aspects of the gameplay, and it's something that I would really not want to spoil for people that really want to get into this game. So the battle system is okay, it's fun enough, but the part of this game that I hated was the actual exploration in this game. These environments are very annoying to navigate. They're designed in a way where you have to backtrack a ton, and it's just a pain in the ass to travel through these environments. There's like these really annoying puzzles that you'll find sometimes. There's a lot of fetch questy type stuff that's going on, and the save points are way too few and far between. Like you have to play like 30-minute to an hour-long sections in this game without saving. And sometimes you'll get to a point where you'll feel like you're going to be dead soon, and you're going to need to get to a heal point, and you don't know if there's going to be one ahead of you, so you have to backtrack all this way through like these sparse environments that aren't fun to navigate through, and the movement speed is way too slow in the beginning. You might get some speed adjustments later as like some upgrades or something like that, but like the save points are way too few and far between. It just takes forever to backtrack to them. So basically, between the irritating navigation, the annoying puzzles, and the kind of subpar battle system, it just wasn't quite gripping me from a gameplay perspective, and it wasn't good enough to keep me going, despite the interesting story and some interesting story beats that kind of happened throughout the game. Eventually, I reached a point where like the backtracking and just like the annoying puzzles and navigation it really got to me, and I just put the game down. Now, not to say that I won't return to this game. If I'm feeling in the mood for a game like this, I might return to it and kind of force my way through it, because I really do like the story so far from what I've seen. But the gameplay I don't know, I just don't think it's very good, to be honest. Visually, it's not a good looking game. I mean, this was made in RPG Maker, and you can tell it looks dated. Everything about it just looks dated. It's very simple. The environments are boring to look at. The sprite work isn't fantastic. A lot of people I find complain about Undertale, a game that came out this year, or 2015, about Undertale's kind of NES-looking graphics, but I think that game's visuals are far superior to this. Like, I think this is kind of an ugly game, but at the same time, the tone that this game has, it does kind of fit the tone, I would say. Like, it's not, even though it's an ugly game, I don't, it's not a huge deal to me. It's not a deal breaker to me, but for some people, it'll probably be, people will look at this and be like, oh, that looks terrible. I would not want to play that. And I could kind of understand that. The soundtrack is very interesting. I don't know if I love it. It's like it's so hard to describe, but again, it really fits like the tone and style of the game. I really can't describe it. Hopefully you'll get like a kind of a listen with the footage I'm going to upload here, but like, I don't know, very like kind of ambient kind of music. It's not like, there's some songs that are kind of like, bombastic and things like that, but like it's very ambient, and the instruments that are used in the different songs are very weird. Some of the songs are kind of jazzy. Some of the songs use a bunch of horn instruments. It's an eclectic soundtrack for sure. Definitely interesting. I don't know if I love it though, but it definitely, again, it fits the game. It definitely fits the game. I don't know really too much else to say about the game. It's a fairly simple game, but it does some very interesting things. And I think the style and tone of the game is unlike anything I've played, really. It's just a shame that the gameplay just does not do it for me. And ultimately, I put it down after about, I think I put about 5 hours into it, which is probably not enough. I don't know how long the game is. It's probably not very long. I'd imagine like 10 to 12 hours probably. But if this looks up your alley, definitely at least check it out. I don't know if there's a demo or anything like that, because if you're able to get past the, frankly, kind of terrible gameplay, I think there's a lot to like here and admire here. If it was just a better game, I think I would have definitely enjoyed it more. But regardless, it's still definitely interesting, and I wanted to do an impressions video on it. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.